Welcome viewers! What appears to be a computer I have in front of me is essentially a keyboard and a case with a Kira keyboard to USB adapter and an Amiga 1200 keyboard. I can connect this setup to any computer and pretend I am working with a real Amiga 1200. In this video I will fit a Raspberry Pi 4 Model B running the recent Amiga 5 distro. My last video was about Pistorm that works as a CPU upgrade for an Amiga computer. In this video I will talk about the difference between a Pistorm system and a standalone system running on a Raspberry Pi Model B. First of all, we need to look at the differences and what sets these two solutions apart. But isn't Pistorm basically emulation anyway? In a sense, yes. The Pi is typically running a 68K core and glue logic to act like a CPU on the Amiga bus. The key difference is that what is being emulated. Pistorm emulates, re-implements the CPU and adds a few features, while the Amiga provides real chipset plus I/O. UAE, in this case on this standalone Pi, emulates the entire Amiga, CPU plus chipset plus peripherals, and in this case the Pi provides everything. That architectural difference is why someone would choose Pistorm even though UAE standalone emulations exists. You use a Raspberry Pi in a Pistorm because the goal isn't to run an Amiga emulator somewhere, it is to turn a real Amiga into a much faster Amiga while still using the original machine's hardware, timing and I/O. On the Pistorm you keep the real Amiga chipset, ports and hardware feel. Boot up with the Amiberry UAE system takes a while longer than an Amiga fitted with a Pistorm, as it has to start up grub, then the Linux kernel, which then initializes the hardware and mounts the file system with drivers before it can finally load the Amiberry system. This can take away some of the feel that you are running in Amiga. Although if you do a soft reboot, this will not be an issue. Cold boot with the Pistorm is much quicker as it just has to load the EMU68 firmware and then it's all Amiga after that. The Amiberry system I'm running here is on a 4GB Raspberry 4 clocked at 2.2 GHz. Some of the advantages running the Amiberry emulation system over the real Amiga with a Pistorm and EMU68 is the integration with Linux. Here you will have compatibility with almost any USB device, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and you can even tunnel into Linux applications from your Amiga workbench. However, I find web browsing to be far too slow with the Pi 4 in the system, so cannot say I use this feature a whole lot. The setup I'm running here is pretty cheap compared to real Amiga hardware. You would do well finding an Amiga 1200 for less than 400 bucks, and then you should probably think about the added cost of a recap for the Amiga itself and then the power supply. After this is done, you will want an accelerator for Amiga, perhaps also a scan doubler. You would probably need joystick and mouse adapters, and the list goes on. The complete cost for an all new system here are the case, which is about 80 bucks, 50 for the keyboard adapter and 100 bucks for the new keyboards coming out later this year. You would probably spend another 120 for the Pi 5 with a USB power and an SD card. There you go, a brand new system with warranty on all parts. Faster than any real Amiga with a Motorola processor out there, and it will set you back around 350 bucks. Not to mention your Pi could also run RetroPie or Batocera. You have a very functional retro computer. A few things that you will not get out of the box is the Amiga I/O, like parallel or serial peripherals. You will not have the nifty PCMCA slot or built-in floppy drive, but these are minor things that can more relate to pairing old hardware with your Amiga system. Real floppy drive can be connected with a grease weasel. The performance the Pi 4 gives you on a standalone system cannot match the raw CPU speed of the Pistorm, as that system does not have the Linux overhead and don't have to spend resources on emulating custom chips, but overall you will have a pretty decent system if you can look away from the occasional quirk you get in some situations. You also get sound out from either mini jack or HDMI out of the box. So I do hope this explains how UAE based emulations differ from a Pistorm. This was not meant to be a review or this is better than that video, as this is a highly subjective topic. Some are sensitive to, for example, how dirty stock sound chips sound on the real motherboard, while others enjoy the modern convenience of a stereo mixing feature. Thank you for watching, and until next time I bid you farewell.